How you doing? Salut. I am the Rasta Witch. Here's where we learn the way of the Yan Sui Rasta, which is to say, my kind of Ital. Please subscribe and begin your own kind of Yan Sui witchcraft. All roads lead to Rome. Home. Hi, okay, so this is about transcending the 7 stages of ego development. So basically, do you know why the Buddha shaves his head and it looks like a fat little baby? Because, I mean, there's many reasons. One, some say it's because it's an O, and the O is the womb of the universe, and it's about like the pentagram in witchcraft, or whichever side of that, that. It's because I'm holding my Bible. I wasn't flipping you off. That means, I mean, I guess I was. Gosh damn it. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Like it depends who you talk to, what the pentagram means. There's a gazillion different. In fact, I haven't heard the same thing twice. I don't think. So it's about like that, But what? So in one of the books I got from this Rasta elder is a book called "Who Am I? The Anatomy of Ego" by Bhagwan Ra Africa. Bhagwan Ra Africa is a Zen Buddhist from Africa, an African Zen Buddhist from the family of Ra Africa in the Temple of Ra Africa or something like that. And he's just well, anyway, he gives a speech. It's that's what this book's about, the anatomy of ego, but it's a little bit different than most speeches. It's in this case, it was he gave like a performance, a speech. I'm not sure what word to use, and someone tape recorded it, and then later wrote it down, and that's what the book actually is. But it's a really interesting thing. It's he starts out explaining how universities all over the world will have like a saying. It'll say, "Worship the gods if you must, but first know thyself," or just know thyself. It's the motto of learned men throughout the centuries, and that's true. Like that's perhaps the biggest thing. Like everybody's got an idea of what's wrong with the world. What's really wrong with the world is people, they want to jump right to being a spiritualist religious person without learning the basic it's not all stuff that you can be taught. Some of it's stuff you have to experience, that you learn about this subject. This subject is knowing thyself. You have to know thyself somewhat before you can take on what these things mean and things like that. So this is really important, and I'm making this part of the Lion King Haile Selassie playlist, and I'm also going to put it on the Kabbalah playlist because it's I just recently did my video about the opening of the 7th seal. The Lion of Judah opens the 7th seal. The 7th seal hasn't been opened yet, or has it? It depends. It's an individual journey. Life is an individual journey. All roads go to Rome. There's as many different ways to do it as there are people. No two ways are exactly the same. It's a personal journey. And that's what Yan Sui means. That's what on my tattoo it says Yan Sui under there. And there's the heart. It's the sacred heart of Mary. It's the sacred heart of I and I. It's where Yahweh is, fire, water, air, and earth, the tetragram. It's where these inner workings take place. And the power of word and who Jah really is, which I'll go over in the Kabbalah playlist. But that's when you realize these things and you learn to be one love, and you learn to transcend through the stages to the 7th stage, then the peace has begun with you, and then it should ripple out, and eventually it'll ripple out enough that it can be made manifest. It can be something that happened, Of course, scripture is just it's mostly fiction and all that, but it's because humans, our words are such a big part of us. It's what makes us so powerful, is our intelligence, and that's really just our words, you know. And the Kabbalah is about organizing your words and using your words with symbols. Words are symbols, and that's what really Jah is. Yahweh is really just a word, isn't it? A name is just a word, isn't it? So it's not so much about the truth. That if it's important to you that the scriptures are true, and that like the opening of the seventh seals is just about, it only needs to be so true. It's the context. It's not so much about what the writers meant when they did that. It's not so much about that as it is about what it's become, today. And it's kind of like when you have a dream and you shoot for it. You say, I never doubted you for a second, but you might have doubted, but you just said you didn't doubt. Like there's many ups and downs, and las va y vienes de la vida, and that's how life really works. Life is, after all, a spiral. And so the Yan Sui is not like that's why I did the Bible discussions playlist first, just to get it over with, so we can move on to the real things. Eventually, my playlist called My Craft, that'll be that's the one I'm excited to get to. But I don't want to get to the witchy part of it all, of my personal, I'm not sure what the right word is, craft, until because I've chosen to attach myself to Rasta concepts, and I need to establish what I think about these things, because the concepts of Rasta come from the Bible in Ethiopia. So what do I think about them, or what's the point, and things like that, So really, it's just ego. The belief that God's a man in the sky is ego. The belief that there's a heaven and hell is ego. The belief that a book can be the word of God, that's all ego, every bit of it. That there's a true church is ego. That Jesus is going to come in the cloud and say who was right all along, ego. Those things are all 100% ego. 100% ego. Trash. They're trash. Garbage. So, but ego's not all bad, though. Like, the definition of ego is to separate from the whole, to separate from the one. So, I mean, if we didn't have ego, then we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between us and a rock and a mountain and a lion, and we'd get eaten by bears and things like that. We'd think that the bear is us, So the first stage of ego development. So again, if I didn't say about the Buddha. So what happens is you start. That's why babies cry. Wah! Wah! Ah! Ah! Oh my gosh! Why do babies cry like that? It's because they think their umbilical cord is still hooked to their mom. They don't know that their mom. They don't know that any of us are separate. They think that when they're hungry, everybody's hungry. When they're cold, everybody's cold. They don't know that everybody's separate and all roads lead to Rome. They don't know that yet, And so they cry. So you start out right. The baby, as it turns out, the baby's right. We are all one. But they until you've gone through these stages of ego maturity, that being right and being one, it doesn't really matter. And that's that's why the purpose of life is to know thyself. And that's why you have to know thyself. Of course, being enlightened, everybody's all an enlightened one. You're an enlightened one. Like it's being a Jedi or something. But like the saying says, before enlightenment, chopping wood and making fire. After enlightenment, chopping wood and making fire. It's really just, it's everything. It's important, but your humanity's always there. It doesn't mean you're perfect or really much more than anyone else in a way, but it does mean that your life is not wasted, because it's the most important thing you can learn is one love, So the Buddha shaved his head and it looks fat like that. I guess he was kind of fat at the end of his life or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's really just a symbol. It really is. Because he probably wasn't fat most of his life, or if ever. I don't know, but it's so he looks like a baby, and that's why his head's shaved, because he's gone back to the oneness, you know. So the first stage is stage one, the body cell physiocentric stage, and it goes kind of like a pyramid. The first stage, most people, unfortunately, most people never make it to the second stage. So most people live on the first stage, the body cell physiocentric stage, you know, which in my notes, I'm just looking. I have in my notes on next to Genesis 1, chapter 1, I have the notes of my book on Bhagwan Ra, Africa's book. It says, emotional umbilical cord remains connected. Mother and baby experience oneness, materialistic, stuck at food and sex. You know, so that's most people. Most people, they start and end their day and they're just trying to pay rent, eat food, have sex, and you know, just they're stuck at food and sex and all that, which is relevant to today. You know, have you ever noticed we have all these big problems, but yet the politicians still keep making the transgender people, making us the scapegoat. You know, we're just this small. We're like less than 2% of the species, but yet they make it sound like we're the biggest problem, and it's the right wingers' entire campaign is about stopping these transgender people and how all that's the biggest problem. And every time they bring up, even if it's a different problem, they say, "Boy, nowadays you can't even tell." You know, they bring it up. It has to do with everything to them. It's because they're stuck at food and sex. You know, they're probably either narcissist or encouraged to be narcissistic, because that's what Babylon does. But they're definitely stuck at food and sex. When you're stuck at food and sex, there's a big difference between a man and a woman to someone stuck on the physiocentric stage, you know, and that's most people. So you can see why all these issues about transgender people, you know, who you really are is not your gender. And gender is a spectrum. And is it wrong to transition gender? No, because none of it matters. It's all arbitrary, and it just doesn't matter, you know. Having a fit and wanting the police to go arrest everybody wearing a certain color of underwear and what direction they comb their pubic hairs is stupid. It's egocentric and it's out of line. But then again, this isn't a system of judgment, you know. And we need to, us transgender people need to not judge them. They're stuck at the physiocentric stage. They think they think men are from Mars and women are from Jupiter or whatever, you know. They think there's a big difference between a man and a woman, you know, because when you have sex, it's two people having sex, you know, and then they don't ever, they can't see beyond themselves, or they don't have compassion and empathy, and they can't see that far out, you know. Stage 2, the development of self-identity, the emotional-centric stage. So this is still way at the bottom of the pyramid. A lot of people do get this far. This is, we notice we're no longer in our mother's womb. We notice we're not, you know, our mom is someone else. She has a different opinion. She's not always right. Sometimes she's hot and I'm cold. When you say me, you mean your body and its history. You think me goes to heaven and hell. So the second stage, you definitely believe in heaven and hell. And to you, life is not a spiral; it is a straight line. When you were born, parents that are mad at their transgender children, you know, and that, you know, they think like my mom thinks I'm going to go to hell. And it's because since she saw me the day I'm born, she thinks, hey, I know what gender you are. Don't tell me, your own mother. She told me that once. It's like, because but she's a Mormon. Mormons are encouraged to be somewhere between stage 1 and 2, really. And so are most people, you know, most religious people. That's what religion's all about, keeping you down there, you know. No, heaven and hell, the belief of heaven and hell is egocentric. If you can't figure out, if you haven't done the research and figured out for yourself, and I'm not going to go into it because I've already talked about it, there's not a heaven and hell. And life is not a linear path, it's a spiral. You know? And if you can realize that, because that person's sure thought a lot more about than just sex and ego. So you can see why that's the second stage, but that's still just the second stage of ego development. And then if you can transcend those things, you can make it to stage 3, which is the extension of ego, the physiocentric stage. Who we are extends to what we own. Like the kid that won't share their toys. Mine, mine, People that who they are is what they own. It's their house, it's their car, and those kind of people they don't want to share because it's it's the end of the world if they're their car, and so that's the stage 3, but it's still pretty egocentric, isn't it? Stage 3, because that's not who you are either. You're not food and sex. You're not your gender. You're not someone that who you were born, and you just have to go down a certain path. Like, no wonder they believe that all you have to do is believe in Jesus and you'll go to heaven. Because it's all just a straight line to them. There's no learning, getting to know thyself. Know the gods if you must, but first know thyself. So that means nothing to them. They of course they'll think they'll say they understand it, but it's not what you own either. That's not who you are. Then if you can realize that, and you've matured past that, you can make it to stage 4, the creative stage of pardon me, the creative stage of ego. And that's the sociocentric stage. We go beyond and realize we can do things. We can create things, like a child that doesn't want any help. Let me do that. Stuart, no, let me do that. It is doing with no goals, no clear understanding of why we are doing anything, no plan. You just notice you can do things. If you look at a baby doing things, let me do it. They don't even really know what they're doing. They just know they can do things and they want to do it. And aren't a lot of adults stuck at that same place? It's kind of like you go through these stages, making it out of being just a baby to being a young child and then to being an adult. To some degree, everybody, even someone stuck at stage 1, does, but goes through like a mini version of it when you're a young child, But we're really not talking about children. We're talking about adults. Okay, so then if you can make it past that and say, hey, I can do things, but you start thinking about what you're doing and can I plan this out better so it works out better next time? Then that's stage 5. And stage 5, one of the problems of the world is our church leaders and our famous people and our movie stars and our people giving podcasts about how to be a success and make money. In this world, all you have to do is make it to stage 5. That's it. There's stage 6 and stage 7 are all just kind of like extra credit. You don't have to do that to be considered a success. But to be a real big success, you probably had to some degree be able to transcend up to this level, the people we admire. And that's the stage 5 is the development of self-image, the ratiocentric stage. Arrogance. We develop a self-image. People become mirrors, and you believe what they say and act it out. Someone stuck at stage 5, they have a degree, and that's who I am a doctor, and that makes me better than everyone else, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm the boss. I'm your manager, and I'm the boss, and arrogance and status. It's the ratiocentric self. People become mirrors. They say, you're a really good-looking person, and then you believe it. You didn't already know that before that, you believe what people say. How often some people think that's the secret of life, using people as mirrors. I've heard talks about that, about how, but that's ego. People aren't mirrors. There's nothing anyone can do. There's nothing anyone can teach you or show you or to help you escape the reality of that it's a personal journey. There's just nothing anyone can do. We're all on our own. All roads do lead to Rome. Home. Then if you can realize that, you make it to stage 6. the development of the rational self, the human-centric stage. And it's pretty outstanding if someone can make it here. If you're at stage 6, you're not a racist. You're not a bigot at all. You're one with all the people. When you see someone get hurt, they stub their toe, it hurts your toe too, you know? And when someone's sick, it makes you sick. And it's like, you know, you're one with everybody and you care about everybody, and you're you know, you become reflective, kind of like number 4, where you want to do things, but now you can plan. You're planning things out. You're conscientious of other people, and you're trying to be careful of your own life too by planning things out. They say you got to love yourself before you can love others. Now you love yourself the right way, that you start loving others and becoming one with others. But it's still just human-centric. If you can start to realize, hey, there's something like this whole one love business is actually not that hard to do. Bigots are pretty stupid. You make it to stage 7, which is the striving ego. Striving because nobody's perfect. Ecocentric stage. You know, ego is what we've been talking about. Eco, E-C-O, like the ecosystem means house. It means everything, ecocentric. So now you realize, hang on, I'm not just one with all the humans. I'm one with the rocks and the trees and the planet and the whole universe. And you become one with everything. It has to do with our intent. Like a midlife crisis, we begin to have a plan, a purpose, worried about the earth and not killing. You know, you might become vegetarian. You know, you start really caring about things that, by caring about them, it doesn't really have any benefit to you, you know? And that's stage 7. So opening the 7th seal of that Haile Selassie, you know, Haile Selassie opens the 7th seal when you make it to a certain level. You know, you might, for the 7th seal to open, maybe you only need to make it to the 5th stage. I mean, the 6th stage, the human-centric stage, you know? Because, like, really, the world, notice that the world operates somewhere between the 1st and the 5th stage. There's just not a lot of people out on the 6th and 7th stage. The 6th stage is pretty outstanding, you know? That might be good enough for world peace to happen, you know? Which is the purpose of the 7th seal. But if you can make it to the 7th stage, which would be necessary for the environmental issues, you know, if we fix just the human problems and we abolish war with the UN type organization and all that, that wouldn't be really good enough, because then we would have that. We would know something inside would know that we're hurting the earth, and the earth is part of our body too, you know. So it wouldn't really work, would it? You know? So enough people, you know, maybe most of the people would be further between 5 and 6, and a lot more people than there are now would be on 7, or I'm not really sure what it would take, you know. It's all way beyond me, you know. So when you meditation, because that's really what this is. These are things you learn through meditating. When you meditate, you know, the whole sitting in posture and the incense and all that thing, those things, they're important, but they're really just important for small reasons, you know, like, you know, like the religiosos have everything sounding so fantastic. It's like, oh, I meditated and I thought I was going to be flying around the universe, but all I was doing is just sitting there, you know. They have everything evil that they consider evil to be so much more fantastic, you know, like transgender people in the bathroom. It's like, whoa, sometimes I'm sitting in the bathroom thinking, wow, those people have the dumbest gas. What the hell? Like, that is such a dumb guess, you know. You know, they don't think very much, do they? So when you meditate, you got to transcend your body. You got to transcend these levels of ego. If you're hunched over, your organs are you can feel it. Hunch over, you can feel your back and your muscles and your organs are pinching. They're uncomfortable. If you sit up straight, they're not making noise. They're not saying I'm hurt or anything. You're just left more to your thoughts, you know. And then, so you light the incense so that your because if you light the same, the same incense every time you meditate, your brain smells it and it triggers it. Kind of like when you come home. If you always came home and your mom was cooking chocolate chip cookies, chocolate chip cookies would remind you of coming home. So it's kind of like that. And you become conscientious of your breathing, and you time your heart and your lungs together. I'm actually going to add a playlist about Mother Mary, and it has some guided meditations, that might help you at first, and in the Witch's Magical Handbook, it says a witch gets a comfortable chair, and meditates and channels in her chair, his or her chair, and that's true. You might even just meditate. You might not sit in posture and look like a pro. Just get a comfortable chair. If you're really, really, really comfortable, then that's really all you need to do. The incense would probably be more important than the posture in my experience. It's about silencing all the chatter. Hey, you got to pay your bills. What time is it? How much time do you have? All the, silence all the little voices and everything. Bring everything down to just your breath and that. And then, once you get in that state, then you can listen to, there should be a lot less voices, and you can listen to the voices that are a bigger part of you, and it might say, I really do need to, because I love myself, work more on my wardrobe, because I'm not really presenting myself like I feel like I ought to. And then, if you notice all your thoughts are about your self-image, then that becomes revealing of what stage of ego you're on. If all you're thinking about is food and sex, and you start thinking about something else, but it always goes back to food and sex, ooh, that's a bad sign. You need to go through a phase. You've become lazy and weak. You're letting your mind think about really low level things. So these are all things with meditation and transcending ego and becoming eco-centric, also called one love, Jah Rastafari.